Hello, everyone. Welcome to our show. I Want to Believe. I'm Cathryn Rogers. I am with my co-host,
Lynda Carino.
and we have a real live witch with us today. His name is Robyn Clark. We are so excited to talk to him, and we'll be right back. We'll be bringing him on in just a moment. Hello, welcome, Robyn. It is so good to have you on our show. I believe we had you on our show before, did we not?
Yes, we did.
Okay, I thought so. I was saying to Lynda, I'm pretty sure we've had him on before. So that was a while ago. That was like last year at least, I believe, right?
Yeah, I think it's been about a year.
Yeah. It's so good to have you on again. And how is everybody doing this week? How are you doing, Lynda?
I'm doing okay. I'm actually busy. Looking forward to going away. I'm going away on a little trip this coming week, so that's a good thing. But otherwise, just fine. Everything's fine. Doing dishes, laundry, the usual. How about you, Kathy?
It's been a week. I had a little bit of a car accident, so I think we totaled my car.
Oh no.
Not sure. Still waiting to hear on the estimate on that one. However, it is my son's birthday today, so that's exciting. He's 19. I can't believe it. It's funny how they were just born yesterday, and then all of a sudden they're like 19. How does this happen? I don't know. I cannot figure this out. It's like,
I know. It's true. It happens.
It happens. Exactly. And how are you, Robyn?
Not bad. It's been a busy week too. I've been working on a few projects here and there, and mostly just art stuff. But it's been pretty busy.
That's good. Yeah, got to keep you out of trouble. I mean, witches get in trouble. This is the thing.
I'm a good witch.
Well, and you know what? I'm so glad that we could have you back on, because I think it's been probably over a year that we've had you on the show, and since then, there's been so much that's going on in the world, so many things that have happened, and so many people are really, I think, getting into alternative forms of all kinds of things, alternative forms of belief, different belief systems. And I mean, there's a resurgence in people that are interested in all things witchy. So,
Yeah.
I'm really glad that you're here, because I think it's important for people to understand what witches are and what witches are not.
Yeah, it's definitely important to dispel some of the myths and some of the stereotypes that we follow, especially due to media and other outlets that like to portray us in a certain light. And my focus normally when I do my talks or do anything like teaching is to break the stereotypes down, as well as the gender barriers.
Yeah, that's important too.
It's funny because the word witch gets thrown out a lot.
Yeah.
On whether it's mainstream, whether it's on my feed itself, I must have thousands of witches of people, of friends that so they claim to be witches, or they have that tagline or some sort of meme that mimics, I guess, the witch in some way. So it must wear on you after a while, or does it bother you anymore?
It doesn't really bother me. It's kind of like taking back your power and taking a term that was a very negative and more of a derogatory slang, and switching the narrative to it and making it something that's, that's sort of like a badge of honor. Like it's something that you've worked towards. It's something that you've either become. Like not all witches are born, and some come into it through their own paths. And that's just the way it works. I mean, you have the people out there that says, "Oh, I come from a long line of witches. Does that make me a better witch than so and so?" No, it doesn't make you a better witch.
Right.
You just have
That's very much like that. That would be very much like psychics and mediums. We hear that a lot. I'm 5th generation. I'm 10th generation. Well, who cares? Like, what are you doing in this life? Like, it doesn't matter what grandpappy did, or grandmommy, whatever. It really has to do with what you're doing in this lifetime as of right now. That's the way I look at it.
And I totally agree with you on that. Like I look at it like I work with like people from all different backgrounds, and when I do my classes or whatever else, and I teach about stuff. I mean, I've had people that claim to be witches and that follow a very strict Christian background. Mm-hmm. Can a Christian be a witch? Technically, yes, they can be. Are they using the title in a specific term? Yes, but then you have to sort of break down what is a witch and what constitutes as a witch. A witch is not necessarily someone who's Wiccan. Yes, a lot of people that are Wiccan use the term witch to describe themselves, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're a witch. It means a lot of people that are Wiccan just describe themselves as being Wiccan. Witchcraft is actually a practice, so it's not a religion, as where Wicca is a religion. Witchcraft stems back from a lot of folk traditions and a lot of folk arts that date back before Christ time. And now you're seeing a resurgence in that because people are returning to their ancestral roots. And so a lot of people are now pulling in and saying, well, I practice witchcraft. Is it witchcraft? Yes, technically. Folk traditions, a lot of them are a form of witchcraft. But then you have to sort of say, if they're going, well, I do it as a religion. Okay, well, that's a little different. Then you take that a next step further. So what I practice is British traditional witchcraft. Now, my practice, I do have a spiritual component to it. Right. Do I consider myself Wiccan? No, not at all. But do I consider myself on the same level as someone who's Wiccan? Sure, because I'm spiritual and I use my belief systems in a certain specific way, just like a Wiccan person would. But I also have a very heavy witchcraft background. So my practice is heavy.
Right. So how would you describe witchcraft?
So witchcraft kind of is a very broad topic. It encompasses a lot of different aspects. Like some people are into divination, some people are into working with herbs, some people are into the crystal stuff and using it in a craft form. So I say craft is sort of like not as in like arts and crafts, but like as in like creating something by using these specific items. For a specific intent.
Right. Okay.
So, for instance, I look at it this way, and you've probably seen memes before online, like people talking about putting things like herbs and spices and vegetables and organics into a pot and making a soup. That's technically witchcraft if you were to look at it in the olden days, because these things back in the day were used for specific reasons. I'm making a soup for healing. Well, I'm putting things in there, some herbs and spices that are for healing and for stuff, technically witchcraft, but ultimately mine is a little bit more broad than that. And but what I practice and what I do, I encompass a lot of different aspects into my own personal practice, as where some witches may not.
Okay. Well, here's a question that I've always wanted to ask you. I mean, how old were you and how far back was it that you kind of felt the pull to be a witch? I mean, is this something that you were kind of born knowing, or did it kind of gradually progress?
I would say I was kind of born knowing, like I didn't really fit into like a lot of things within my family. Like my family's background, a lot of them are very high Anglican. So, and I didn't fit into that mold at all. I never did, never have, and I still don't. Very traditional English background. And then I started, like, I'd find myself, I'd be wandering off into the woods by myself when I was younger. I say little, but I mean younger than I am now. And I would just sort of like zone out, and I just felt more at peace in my own surroundings than I guess a lot of kids my age would have. And then I started sort of finding myself in something and doing stuff. Like I would create my own spells and my own different concoctions and like herbal stuff that I'd make as I when I was younger. So I would honestly say, like, to put an age on when I came into it, probably when I was about 12 is when I officially started practicing and really getting heavy into the practice. And I mean, my parents, for the most part, were very supportive. Like we were very, like my parents were very open about a lot of stuff and very accepting. They had only one rule when it came to religious beliefs, is that as long as it didn't hurt anybody and and you didn't like push your belief system on somebody else, they didn't care what you did. As long as you felt safe and at peace with whatever it is that you're doing. Like, so my parents were pretty cool about it.
No kidding. Like that's really good. Very open for, I could see that more with I guess the age group nowadays having kids, but that's quite amazing. That's good.
Like, I think I was lucky. My mother grew up in sort of more of a very strict military style family, so she didn't want to raise us that same way because she probably knew that we would have probably rebelled at some
Right.
point, and just like she did when she was younger. And my mom was also, kind of artsy, so she sort of saw things in a different light, anyways. So it was sort of nice to. It was nice just having someone that sort of just was very similar to me. Like my mother actually practices witchcraft as well. She came into it and started practicing a little bit later in life, but
Okay.
does practice, and she's very open about it.
That's really good. And being open about it too. I mean, did it take you a long time to be open about it? Or did you experience any kind of bullying or people looking at you weird when you just sort of came out as a witch?
Bullying, not so much. I think most people were that the most of the responses I got was fear. People being afraid of what I was into and what I was doing. I got a lot of like satanic stuff thrown at me. I'm a devil worshiper. I'm this. I'm that, and it has nothing to do with my practices or belief system. Like, that is totally a Christian construct, and it has nothing to do with anything that I believe in. So for me, it was just sort of like I was a bit confused because obviously I wasn't well versed in the Christian faith. So I'm sitting there like getting all this Bible verses and things thrown at me growing up, and I'm going, I don't even know what you're talking about. And so it was easy for me to sort of brush it off my shoulders because I had no idea. So, but if I was raised more in a Christian environment, then I might have been more of offended by a lot of the stuff. But because I wasn't, it sort of made it a little bit easier just to sort of shove them off. So the bullying was sort of like not worth their time. Like, really, like
Right.
you can bully me all you want, but it's not going to do you any good. Like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you a question. I know with my son, because he was still little when I started, when I became a paranormal investigator, and then when I started doing more medium and psychic work and stuff like that, and I think it was probably around when he was grade 8 or 9 when I turned it into a full-time at-home business, and so he had to explain to his friends, like, what does your mom do? He was like, "Well, I'm not telling anyone you're a psychic. That would just make me wacko." Like, people would look at me like I was wacko. So he told them I was a consultant or an advisor, or something basically along that same sort of genre, right? Um, but how do your kids handle it, or do they, they talk about it at school, or how does that work?
So my kids are a little on the unusual side. They have no problems discussing with their friends and telling their friends. Like they'll even make up stories and scare their friends. Like they'll tell their friends, "Oh, that's my dad's witch room. I wouldn't go in there because something's going to happen to you." And so they're terrified to come into my witch room. Even if I'm sitting in there reading or something to ask me something, they'll stand at the door and sort of wait till I see them. But
Right.
as for my kids, like so. My background is I work in healthcare. So if they were to say anything, it would be like, my dad works in healthcare, but is a witch. And then their friends would be like, oh, and then of course then my kids play up on it. I mean, I think like anybody of that age, like my kids range from 12 years to like going on 19. So it all depends upon the age group that comes in. Like my youngest friends don't really understand the concept, but my older two, their friends are definitely a lot more open to it. And I've
Right.
actually run into a few of their friends who practice, who are young and started practicing Wicca, and would ask me questions and come in and sit with me in my room and just be like, and pretty much grill me on things and say, okay, what about this? What about this? What about this? And then I have to sort of set the bar straight, because a lot of the stuff is they're getting off of TikTok and they're getting off of online things, and not everything that you see on TikTok or online is actually how things are. Now,
No, really, no.
but now the way I practice may be different from somebody else who practices, may be different from how you practice or how Lynda practices or
Right.
whoever practices. Like, is our core the same? Maybe, but our practices may be different. Like my traditions, like I try to pull from my ancestral traditions, so things that my ancestors would have used and done, as opposed to the more modern stuff. Like I like to use things that are like traditional to my background, my lineage, and that's how I practice. I mean, I find I connect better with my roots that way. It'd be like me trying to use indigenous practices for myself, which doesn't work. I don't have a connection to it. I may find it beautiful, and I may find it very interesting, but number one, I'm not indigenous. Number two, I have no connection to the indigenous culture other than through friendship.
Exactly. Well, actually, interestingly enough, Cody, hi Cody. Cody has a couple of questions. He wanted to know, he said he thinks, or he thought, that all male witches were called warlocks. And he also wants to know that people who practice witchcraft, do they all have covens?
Okay.
How come I can't see Cody's comments? Where are they?
I guess I'll answer that while you're looking for his comments.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the term warlock is actually a derogatory term, and it was invented by Christian people to put down. So they tried to do witch as being the female version and warlock as being the male version.
Yes.
We don't use the term warlock. I shouldn't say we all don't use the term warlock. A lot of us don't use the term warlock, and we just stick with the term witch as an interchangeable term between genders. Do some witches use the term warlock? I'm sure there are some out there. I don't know any personally, but it was a Christian construct. So it wasn't something that we came up with, and that's how they came out of that. Warlock usually represented someone that was like into satanic magic.
Right.
Now, for the second part of your question, do all witches belong to covens? No. There are probably far more witches out there that are solitary practitioners as opposed to coven members. And the reason is covens are kind of like a church. So there's a hierarchy, and they usually follow a specific practice. So they may be individually be witches that are in there, but they usually follow like a tradition. So for instance, in the Wiccan faith, there is a Dianic tradition. So that would be like they would follow in that tradition, as where if you're a solitary practitioner, you would follow either like your hereditary roots and practices that your family may have learned and done in the past, and if you're Wiccan, you can practice on your own as well as a solitary. So it's kind of like it's a choice if you want to belong to a coven. And in a coven, there's also a hierarchy. So you have a high priestess and a priest, and then there's the subordinates underneath that sort of make up the pyramid, just like in a church, as where when you are like practicing on your own, you have nobody that's above you, and it's just you and your beliefs. If that makes sense.
Totally. It absolutely makes sense. So here's another question for you. Um, Someone recently said to me, I wonder how a real witch feels about all of the wannabe witches out there, because there's a witch aesthetic out there that everybody seems to want to be a part of. How would you answer that question?
Um, so a wannabe witch, I don't really know what that is per se. I look at in terms of if someone is really interested in being into witchcraft, and that was the thing that they are driving towards. I guess we all start off as a wannabe witch in the beginning, like we call them baby witches. Um, Now, if someone's just using the term and so they can bring about fear, or they like the aesthetic, like I'm going to wear all black clothing, like heaven forbid, I just happen to be wearing black clothing today, but like
We're all wearing black.
like it's a stereotype that this is how a witch dresses, and they're going to wear like animal bones and things. Some do. Like, I'm not going to say that they don't. There are some out there, and I know a few that like to wear that sort of aesthetic. But ultimately, that doesn't make you a witch.
Right.
How you practice and what you believe in, that's what makes you the witch. So not the way you look. You don't have to have black hair. You don't have to have crazy piercings. You don't have to have any of that stuff to be a witch. It's just something inside your soul that makes you that. And so, like, the wannabe witches out there, I mean, okay, they have some soul searching to do, and hopefully they find the path that works for them. And if not, then they get off the train, like, and find something that's more suited to their aesthetic. But as for like an image, we don't really have an image. We're like the soccer mom down the street, the librarian that lives across the road, the doctor that you go and see. Like, that's who we are. We're just regular people. Our image may be regular. Some of us may be a little bit more avant-garde and kind of intense in the way we dress, but not all of us are like that.
Well, that's true. That's true. No, that's a good answer, because it does seem that there are a lot of people that feel that they have to dress the part, if you know what I mean.
I find that with a lot of the younger generations, like I was talking about my kids' friends that are coming into the whole Wiccan thing, and when I see their image and the way they dress and the stuff that they like to wear and stuff, and I'm sitting there going, okay, well, it's very media driven, if I can use that. It's very TikTok and YouTube and that sort of driven, like the way people portray themselves on these media platforms is the way that these kids and I are thinking this is how we are supposed to behave and dress. But
Yeah,
if they were to come into a real life situation in a coven and start meeting people within a coven or other witches that are in the community, they'll come to realize that they don't have to, and then they'll evolve themselves, hopefully, and learn what their style is and their aesthetic is, and then that is their witch aesthetic.
right. It's like a mystique or something to most
Yeah,
people, I think. Yeah.
I think that's what the younger generation, a lot of them seem to like, is the mystique behind it, and the sense of power you get from when you call someone a witch, who, like, you can do all these different things. Yes, we can do lots of things, but we're not going to be shooting lightning out of our fingers at you.
So in my city, in Edmonton, I know I'm not part of it or anything, but I know that there was, because we always have these craft fairs, and a lot of the craft fairs, or we'll have the mystical fairs, at
Yep.
metaphysical fairs. We get a lot of those, actually. And we actually apparently we have a huge witch population.
Yep.
However, it always seems to be in turmoil, because I would go to one of these fairs, to do readings. I would have a table or whatever, and and you're kind of like, okay, I'm just going to sit in my corner. I don't really want to, like, populate with anyone here because this is like it was so catty, and it was like, and it was just horrible. But the one thing I have found, and I found that again, in sort of the psychic community or the spiritual community, as well, is what seems to be happening is if you don't go by a certain way or a certain political aspect or by a certain I don't know, you don't tap your heels 3 times when you wake up and get out of bed and go, well, I can't wait to be home, or there's no place, like some BS, you know what I mean? It's like you have to follow this pattern, you have to do this, or you have to think like this, or you have to, then you're not a real psychic, you're not a real spiritual person, you're not a real whatever. Do you get that in the witch community? Like, just out of curiosity, like, is there anybody that says, well, you don't have a wand, so obviously you're not a witch, or
Yes.
or you don't have a bone through your nose, so you're not a witch, or whatever it is, like, you know what I mean, like that kind of behavior.
Yeah, I think in any culture system you're going to run into it. We do have that sort of some of the mentality as well. The resurgence of witchcraft, though, or Wicca, even including Wicca, is fairly new, like in North America and across the globe. So, because it was such a hush hush thing before, because witches primarily practiced in secret, it wasn't a thing that was out in the open, and you did. Like, if you were in a rural community, your community members may know that someone in the community was a witch and who they were, and they may go to them for certain things, but it was sort of still kept a hush hush. Now it's become a lot more open, witches have come out of the broom closet, so to speak, and are now a lot more open about their practices and their beliefs. But they're all varying and different. The problem is acknowledging that we're all different and we all come at the same thing. Magic is like a big pot, and we all draw from the same pot. It doesn't matter which faith background you come from, you're drawing from the same pot. Some may be a little bit more talented than others at pulling out of that pot and being a little bit better at it. It's just like a psychic. Some may be a lot more in tune than another psychic. Doesn't make them a bad psychic. It just means that this one's practices maybe a little bit more.
Right.
We still run into the same stigma, even in the witch community. It's because you feel like you have to compete with somebody else. Even within gender roles, like in the witch community, between men and women in the witch community, there is like a hierarchy where women, I'm not saying all women, but some women in the community believe that they hold more power and authority than a male that practices witchcraft. Is that true? Honestly, there has been no proof otherwise to say it is true. And on top of that, I don't look at a female being higher than myself. I look at them as being equal to me. Same with someone who may be transgender or even of the LGBT community. They all come at it from a different way. We're all drawing from the same pot. We're all on a different journey. My witchcraft may be, my witchcraft may be British traditional witchcraft. Theirs might be British traditional witchcraft, but it's based off of their traditions from their family or whatever. So their family may have done things a little differently than my family would have done. And so therefore, and the way I teach my kids. So it's just sort of like, we need to stop judging each other and start realizing that we're all part of the same community and build a community, as opposed to like breaking it down because we're not happy because someone does something that they don't like.
Yeah, that's really true. That's true in so many different communities too. I mean, you're absolutely right. But okay, here's a question for you that came up the other day. Are all witches psychic? That's a good question, right?
That is a really good question. Yeah.
So that one is a pretty easy one. No, they're not. Do a lot of witches, I find, have sensitivities to like fields of energy? Yes, a lot of them do. I think it's because of our attunement to that frequency and what we practice. Are there psychic witches? Yes. Are there lots of witches out there who claim to be psychic? Yes. Are they psychic? I couldn't tell you. All I could tell you is that the ones who I have met that have claimed to be psychic have been pretty legit. And I sort of now look at them like, I will give you 100% chance. I'm not going to challenge you. I'm not going to test you, but I'm not going to deny your ability. Like, you feel things, I feel things. Like, my feelings are my feelings. I mean, I couldn't tell if a psychic that I went to had a reading from was telling me the truth or not, because I've been to psychics where they start telling me about people in my ancestry, and I'm going, I have no idea who that is. I have no idea. But are they wrong? No, it just means I haven't never met them before in my life, and or they died before I was even born, so I wouldn't know what they look like or whatever. So I have to be diligent and do my research and go, okay, so and so said this. Maybe there is somebody like that. And if you can validate somebody, then validate them. But if you can't, it's probably not a good idea to discredit people just because, like, I just don't see the point in it. Um, but again, like, is there a lot of psychics and stuff in the witch community? Yes, but doesn't make you don't have to be a psychic or have special abilities to be a witch.
I have found that people that seem to be more, I don't know, I guess the best way to say it is connected, whether it's to earth or whether it's to, those people that are very comfortable with being on their own at times, people that, they like you said, you like to play in the woods, you like to go to the woods,
Yeah.
not necessarily play, but you were in, and it's those people that feel that comfort with the environment around them, whether it's within their own home or whether it's external, but they can seem to just be pleasant in the environment that's surrounding them at that current time without being erratic or whatever it is. They seem to be very and I mention that simply because there's a lot of, you do hear a lot of that in the community, like in the witch community or whatever, just even in the psychic, the spiritual community. It's like these people seem to have that ability to work with energy, work with spirit, work with whatever it is, like, their craft, I guess is the best way to say it. And and so we talk about, psychics being witches, definitely I could see that a lot because they can be very comfortable within themselves.
Yeah, and that's pretty much like that is sort of the foundation. Like, you're at a certain level as a being. It doesn't even be a witch if you can be in tune with your environment and you're in tune with the energies that are around you. I mean, everything that we have in our environment radiates energy. Some people are just a lot more in tune to it, and some people are not, but doesn't make them less of a witch. It's just something that they learn to grow and learn. They have to be comfortable in their own skin.
Yeah.
They have to be comfortable in their own surroundings. And if they're not, they need to learn to be comfortable in their own surroundings. And they'll find that things will open up for them once they start learning to get it. Like, can I sense spirit? Yes, I can sense spirit. Can I see spirits? No. Can I sense energy shifts and energy changes in a room? I can definitely sense it. Can I sense energy changes in someone's body or in their around them? Oh yeah, I can get it. And sometimes it even affects me where I'm like, okay, I gotta go. Like you're like you're really, and some people look at you like you're crazy, but no, it's just because I'm more in tune to my surroundings.
But
I
a lot of
know.
people would deem that as being psychic as well, or intuitive or empathic. It's all really along that same level or line. It's just going to vary as to the different, maybe particular ability that you may have. But that is just, that's very intuitive, right?
Like
That's also very empathic. So,
I've never really been formally trained in, like, for instance, spirit communication or talking with spirits or whatever, connecting with spirits in that sort of sense. I can sense a spirit. I can sense if I'm in a room and something's in the room with me. I can sense sometimes if I've been in a room and someone else has been in the room, and I can kind of go, okay, yep, and then get like sort of like an imprint. But
right.
I don't. I kind of wish I did. I wish I could see or hear, like that would make it would validate me a lot more than me going, okay, well, I know I can feel you and I know you're here and I will talk out loud to you, but I have no validation that you're here. So
I'll
when
tell you something. I'm just gonna say you don't want to be in that place where you're seeing them. I actually removed that. Like I asked my own personal guides to remove that ability. I see them in my head. I'm good with that. So I can walk into a room and I can get the energy and then I can start kind of tapping into it and focus in and, guide myself. And then I can hear and see them just as clear as my head. You do not want to see them with your eyes because you get very confused. I'm just going to be straight up with that. It's very
Well,
confusing.
that's very good to know, because see, someone like me, like
Yeah.
all I do is I feel the energy in the room, and I can feel, like, sometimes I can feel if it's a female energy or a male energy.
Yeah.
Um, the ones that throw me off are the ones that are kind of like, I call them the dual energy. So
Mhm.
maybe they're people that are grasping with their own self identity, or maybe their own sexuality. So then their identity is coming across to me as kind of dual, like,
Right. Yeah.
it's sort of like
Well, and there's also very masculine men and feminine, or masculine women and feminine men, right? So sometimes, it doesn't have, they don't have to change their gender, in order to be that way. There's just, naturally, or even sometimes within us, where we have that ability, like we are all that duality of masculine, feminine. It just really depends on which we decide to present to the world,
yeah,
and
for sure.
there's very much there's been a lot of times where I'm doing a reading and I can feel it's like something doesn't feel right. I know it's like, I know it's a female, but she feels masculine. And I'll be like, is this a masculine woman? And they'll be
And
like,
for me, that's
yeah,
where, like, for me, like, not being able to visually even picture them in my head, and I just feel that energy, it kind of gets a bit confusing, because it's sort of like you're kind of like going, I don't know what's going on here, like something's happening,
right.
and you're trying to pinpoint it. But I mean,
Yeah.
again, it's just that it's learning to let go and sort of just go with the flow. And I'm still at that phase where I'm like, I like going into a place, and I like picking up on stuff, and then I just say it out loud what I'm picking up on, and hopefully someone else is picking up on the same thing I'm picking up on, and maybe they can clarify what I'm thinking. That's why I
Right.
like when I go on paranormal stuff, like, and there's other people in the group that are investigators or whatever. Some might be gifted in some senses, and I might go, okay, like, this is what I'm picking up. Anybody else getting something similar to this? And then, we sort of like start talking about it, and then it's like, okay, now that makes sense. Like, I understand now what I'm feeling.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, you've been on some paranormal investigations with my team.
Yes.
And I have to say, your astuteness when it comes to detecting something around you, a vibrational change or an energetic change, or knowing when there's something there, has been incredibly invaluable. And honestly, just so dead on, which is fantastic. So thank you for that. And also, there's some good questions coming in here because,
Okay.
because, well, first of all, there's one that Amanda wanted to know, and it's about doing what you do for personal gain, right? So it's kind of like when you're a paranormal investigator, we don't charge for what we do because we feel that it's a calling, that it's something that we feel we need to do for others. What
Yeah.
about when you're a witch and you're doing whatever you're doing? You're casting, you're talking to people, you're doing some kind of a reading. How do you feel about all of this for personal gain?
So personal gain sort of is the borderline thing, the Wiccan thing. I don't look at it as personal gain to be paid for a service. And I also look at it in terms of, if you are doing something and someone offers you a gift or a donation to help you, I mean, I don't ask for anything when I help people. And do they offer me stuff? Sure, they do. And most of the time, I'm kind of reluctant in taking anything from somebody, because I feel like if I have a gift or an ability to do something good or be able to help them, it's kind of like my duty to do it.
I'm
Um,
going to stop you on that one, just because that's your belief and I fully understand. But I am
Totally.
going to stand up for those like me who does do this for a living, because unfortunately my mortgage company doesn't accept
and
chickens
and
and
I and I
you know,
and you know what? And I totally agree with you. Like, but
because there's
as
a
a
lot of people that go, well, if you have this gift, you should do it for free. But you know what?
no,
A hockey player has a gift. A
and you're right.
pianist has a gift. A doctor has a gift. And so if we go down that line, then basically who do we stop paying? Do we start like just because my gift is a little different than your gift, does that mean that that you shouldn't receive remuneration for it? Like,
Um,
because the thing is that, right, it's like, okay, well, if this is my gift, I've practiced, I've put time and years and effort to hone it so that I'm making it for others, where they can have faith and trust in my practice or what it is that I do. Should I just go, okay, well, no, just give me some peas or give me a piece of corn, and all of that energy and work and years and years and years are dismissed, right? And so should a doctor do that? Because I think so. I mean, if I can't, then a doctor shouldn't, or a mechanic. Like, who fixes my car? Then a mechanic shouldn't, or the bank shouldn't, or you know what I mean? We could go on and on and on and on, right? But so that's where I stop people, because I go, you know what? If you're giving something, it's going to be your choice as to what it is that you receive back. Absolutely, it's your choice. But we can't make a blanket statement in regards to it. Like, if you have a gift and you want to share it for free, by all means do so, right?
yeah, sure.
But there's many people that do have this gift, and we, like, if I was to, let's say I was to work all day, 8 hours a day, every day, and then come home and do this for 8 hours a day, every day, where's my, like, you know what I mean? What if I was just giving it away? So, okay, so I work all day, I come home, and now I'm obligated to just give it all away. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't work for me, right? Like, it's a gift. Like, yes, it's a gift from God. That's how I look at it. But I've spent years honing it, practicing it, working with the energies of it, all of that. I've put just as much work into it as somebody else might with their own gift, or with whatever talent that they have. So, that's the way that we have to look at it, right? But I do feel like that's very, very, very individual. And so when people are asked, should we, charge for that, or is it personal gain? I don't consider paying my mortgage and eating food to be personal gain.
No, those are necessities of
Right?
life.
Like that's the bottom line, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the bottom line, because nobody else is paying my mortgage but me. And
No.
so I have to find a way to do so, and nobody else is doing it for me. And so it's not really, you know what I mean? Like, is it personal gain if I take myself on a holiday because of it? No. Should I feel guilty about it? Hell no. You know? I deserve a vacation as much as a mechanic does,
But
right?
it's an energetic exchange, and all work that one does.
Right. It's
It's
some
an
sort of
energetic
exchange energetically, and there has to be an exchange energetically. Otherwise, it's just, whether this is remuneration, whether this is a huge thank you, and you know what, next time I see you, I'll grab you a coffee, or I'll give you, you know what I mean, or something. But but that's your personal choice as to how you want to make it.
I totally agree with you. For me, and that's why I always use me as an
Yeah.
I statement, like the way I do things. Do I charge for it? I do not charge. I do
Right.
not charge because I am uncomfortable in that situation.
Yeah.
That's a personal thing with me, as opposed to somebody who may be better at, to, like, this is what this is worth. In the end, my joy comes from the satisfaction knowing I have done something. This is specifically directed at me, not necessarily everybody in the community or whatever.
Mhm.
If I was to charge for things, sure, I don't see a problem with it. I don't see, if you're, like you said, buying food for yourself,
Yeah.
for your supporting your family, supporting whatever, using your gifts
Mhm.
to do that. That's fine. I mean, I don't see an issue with it. I think personal gain is more like if you're using your gifts to, like, win the lottery, or
Mhm.
influence another's decision or
Absolutely. I
ability.
totally agree with you. 100%. I tell you, if I could win the lottery by doing this, I wouldn't be doing this.
No, I'd probably still be doing this, but and maybe in a little different light. I might wear some fancy robes or something. But yeah, no, I don't see an issue with doing it for money. I just have a hard time accepting money and gifts.
Right.
Uh, so I kind of get put on the spot when it happens, and it's sort of like I freeze up.
Yeah.
Because the energy shifts even in me at that point, because now I'm kind of like, oh, like, it's just an uncomfortable feeling. So I normally don't go into it looking for anything, and then people usually offer me something. in return. And I will go with the flow at that point, but I don't normally.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. And I can understand that, because sometimes when people have that expectation, like, if I give you this, what are you going to give me? And there's sometimes like a huge obligation on top of that, right? Where it's like, are you going to give me more? Are you going to do this? Are you going to do that? There's expectations that are sometimes added to that, and so, I mean, like, for me personally, it's like, you're going to pay me, you book the appointment, I don't even think about your payment, I don't think about any of that, we're just going to go boom into this, and this is where it is. Money never comes up, it's never talked about, or it exchanged in that handed to type of energy. It's just a matter of, there's my website, book it, we're done.
I'm so awkward about it. So I kind of look like a deer in the headlights when people start saying stuff. I mean, I've gotten some great gifts from clients, like where I've had I had a person offer me gave me a piece of their art, which is now hanging in my witch room. I've had people give me like crazy crystals and stuff, and I've thought of you when I got this, and I hope it helps you, and absolutely gorgeous things. Well, like,
It's nice.
It makes you feel good, but then again, it also makes me feel going, I don't want to ask for anything. I don't want to do this. And, like, it's my own personal insecurity, I think, about taking someone else's money.
100%, yeah. And you can release that. If you ever want to talk, you let me know.
I will definitely.
We'll chat.
Well, okay, so here's a question for you. I know people who are interested in witchcraft, there's all kinds of, holidays and rituals and things like that. And they tend to get confused. What's your best advice for somebody out there who wants to start maybe doing some research into it, or start on the journey of becoming a witch? I mean, because it can be really confusing, right?
Mm-hmm. So being a witch, like, if you're taking away the whole Wiccan aspect, you're going to look towards more following the moon cycles, and you're going to look towards following more of the nature, like seasonal cycles. Forget about the names of the holidays and stuff, because that's very like Wiccan based. That's a very religious background thing.
Right.
More focus in on, if you're not wanting to be Wiccan or follow the Wiccan, more focus in on the changes of the season and your moon cycles, because those are the things that in the craft we would focus on. Now, if I'm going into, like, for instance, but even British traditional witchcraft, we do follow like the certain Sabbats, we call them, but not everybody does. So if you're interested in knowing what the Sabbats are and that sort of thing, then I would say definitely, like, find a really good, like, a well-known author that's written books about, like, Wicca, and just sort of see what they say, and sort of follow along as best you can. Make your own decisions about whether or not that seems like something that would fit for you. You also got to know, like, and I say this to everybody that I teach, say, for instance, you come from a predominantly Italian background, and you are connecting to the Italian witchcraft background. So your holidays are going to be a bit different than someone who's like Celtic, or who follows like a Roman sort of style. So your holidays would be called something different. So it's better to look into what your ancestral lineage would have practiced, if that's what you're more interested in, and go that route. So you're going to look at, like, anthropological stuff, and you're going to look at historical documentation, and you're going to try to find people who practice within those cultural faith backgrounds, and then sort of build your own network based on those things. And you'll find that once you start researching, you'll find people that come out of the woodwork that are into the same thing, thinking the same thing as you, and you build a community that way of like minds. Or, like I said before, if you're into and you're looking for a religion, and you're looking for something that follows these holidays, then I would definitely say start with the Wiccan faith, because it's a good basis for someone that's just beginning.
Okay. Do you have a favorite ritual, and do you have a favorite celebratory time of the year?
So it may seem a little cliche, but my favorite time of the year is Halloween. So we celebrate Samhain, which is, if I was to give it sort of break it down, it's like Remembrance Day and New Year's mixed in one. So we honor our ancestors and stuff. So we do, like, I do on Samhain, I do oh my God, I can't even talk English today. I do practice a ritual in the evening. I also, when I cook, I also set the table for it's like the dummy supper. So there's a plate for my ancestors. I also have an altar, so similar to what they do on the Day of the Dead, where there's an altar of family members, pictures, all that. I like to do that because I like to reminisce. Also, I kind of hope it invites them to check in on me, because I like that sort of feeling that my relatives are looking in at me. Sometimes I'll leave food outside my door for passing spirits. It depends upon, because I also have young kids, I end up having to take them trick-or-treating or whatever. So my time limit is very limited in the evening. So I'm usually up very late that evening, and it's kind of exhausting the next day. So I try to space it out as much as I can. And so I definitely, Samhain is my go-to day. And my kids and I, we celebrate Yule every year. So around Christmas time. So my kids also celebrate Christmas, so we kind of do a dual thing, and they've been learning this since they were young, and it's nice because they get to see a little bit of me, and I get to see a little bit of something they enjoy, and they can choose. If my kids say to me, "Dad, I want to practice the Jewish faith," go ahead, like do you, as long as you know that I still love you and that I respect your choices in your religion and your background, and you do the same to me. And yeah, that's pretty much, we're pretty open.
That's really
I love
awesome.
that. Yeah, I love that. I love hearing that because, it's I feel like a lot of families, or, just people in general, they can be so closed off, and they can make it just so difficult for, whether it's their kids or family members or whatever, to just be able to enjoy and participate. And, or they have that look of, well, I'm tolerating you at this moment. But
Oh
I
yeah.
I think you're just morally irrehensible. Like, you're just like, and you can see that in their look, right? And you're like, okay,
Yeah, I just sort of let it, like, float off of me like water off a duck's back. Like, it just,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know, everyone's going to have an opinion about you, and everyone's going to have
yeah,
a thought on how you're supposed to be, how you're supposed to dress, how you're supposed to act. You just need to show them who you are, and
yeah.
you're a being of light. So show them that light, and show them that you can still be just as bright as somebody else of a different faith background.
I love that. That's so
Do you
true.
do you find for yourself, like, do you yourself have a huge community around you, like a lot of friends that practice witchcraft as well, or that?
I do have friends that practice witchcraft. Do I have a lot of them? No. Because I'm very selective about the people that I keep in my very tight social circle.
Mhm.
So my way of, like, I sort of like weed them out. Like, it's basically based on feeling and sort of mutual, like, energetic exchanges that I sort of feel like who fits best in my social circle. I definitely have a tight and well-versed group of friends that do practice, and I think
Right.
that they are my community. Now, do we always practice together? No. 99% of us are solitary, but we do sometimes get together when we can and practice together. And it's basically like we just use each other's gifts and abilities and talents and stuff to build this absolutely stunning ritual or stunning experience for all of us. And it's nice. It's a great feeling when you can get together with somebody, but it's also a great feeling when you're doing things on your own. Like, I don't have to have the lights flickering and candles waving to make the mood, my energy in that room feel like it's on top notch. I just know when it's that peak. and that I can use my energy to help in some way. When you're with a group of people, and I'm sure you know, as someone that also has gifts, like when you're really like, even if you're around other psychics and you're sort of like the energy is bouncing off of you, like there's nothing that's quite like that feeling.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so yes, like when witches are together and you're really in tune with each other because you've sort of chosen your group, that feeling and that ability to like resonate each
Hmm.
other's energy to like this ultimate sort of like light is amazing.
It's kind of like it's like that expression, when magic happens. That's the first
Totally.
thing I feel is, or hear, is like when magic happens, and it's through that process, or through those rituals, or through that getting together with with those people that are close to you in that aspect. I think that's beautiful.
I think it's important, and I always encourage people who are pagan, Wiccan, spiritual, whatever, to reach out to people in the community and get to know your community members. Like, you may not stick with those specific people, but you may meet people, and I think it's important that you meet and you network, because
Yeah.
you will find your tribe. Basically, you will find your people, and you will
Right.
find who you connect with and who you don't connect with. And it's okay to like say, you know what, I didn't connect with Sally because her and I just, we're great to talk to, but it's her energy and mine just don't mash, and that's okay.
Right.
But Sally will mash with so and so's energy and you may not, and that there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that's the biggest thing that we forget, that it's okay to say, you know what, no, I just don't feel it, and
Mhm.
but I think you're a great person, I just don't feel it.
Right. Okay.
Right.
And that's
Great.
very honest too. It's very honest. It's very open.
And I think that's important because especially if you work
Yeah.
if you're doing anything with energies or
Yeah.
spirit, it's when you start trying to sort of buffer what you're saying, is I find when you start blocking a lot of
Yeah.
stuff, and things sort of get misconstrued.
Literally, I was gonna bring up energy. Like, energy flows when it doesn't have those blocks in there, and that's how, like, as a psychic or a medium or whatever, that's how I see a lot of things. It's through the energy. See the energy flowing, or where it's going, or how it's forming, and all of that stuff. And I love the fact that you just said that. Like, that just it's like that. It's like knowing that this is universal,
Yeah.
what, no matter what you want to call yourself, or whatever your beliefs are, and all of that, this, energy, magic, is, it's just so, it's there, it's prevalent. And really, we just need to tap into it, and just,
Like, I picture energy as a spring, and everyone needs to drink out of the spring at some point. Some of us like to sit beside it and watch it. Some of us like to bathe in it. Some of us like to play in it. But that spring, everybody can and attune to. It's just you got to be open to doing it. And once you start realizing that spring that everyone's pulling out of is the same spring, things just come into click. Like, I mean, I've done stuff with Lynda before, and we click, and it's just sort of like I find it natural. Like, I can, when I'm with Lynda, for instance, like in stuff, like I find the connection is much easier than, say, for instance, someone that I may have just met.
mhm.
And so, I mean, I the other thing is, Lynda and I have known
And
each other
Linda
for a
has
long time.
beautiful energies too, so it
She
also.
does, and her energy complements mine in a certain way, that it just, they mesh together really well.
Yeah.
So, and I feel that when I'm around people, I feel that when I get to meet people. It's harder when I meet people via like Facebook or Skyping or anything like that, like whether or not your energy is going to connect. I can tell if I like somebody by the way I talk to them, but the way I feel it the most is when I'm in front of them, and I can actually absorb some of who they are inside me, and I go, okay, yep, nope, yep, that works, nope. Like, you get the dark, you feel the dark and light spirits, and you can feel the ones that are like a little bit on the, the gray side, and you're kind of going, oh. But yeah, I don't know, I think, but not every witch is like that.
No.
Like, some of us just don't have that ability or that gift. but they have other gifts and abilities or other things that they bring to the table that are just as valuable and important. And so that's the one thing we got to remember.
Love it.
So just before we, well, first of all, I just want to thank you so much for being on
You're
the
very
show
welcome.
today. It was just such a pleasure to talk to you. Is there anything that you would like to leave people with, or is there, like, I don't know if you have people contact you, or if you have a website, or if there's anything that,
Normally, like most of the time I get contacted through the Georgina Paranormal Society if they are okay with that, so they can always contact Lynda, and if they have questions for me or even through Lynda, I'm more than willing to reach out to them. I don't personally have my own access to that. Once I have a client base, I then reach out to them on my own, but most of it's through word of mouth and how I work primarily. But just to the idea of being a witch, and I think people need to put the two aside and understand witchcraft and Wicca are two different things. Witchcraft is a practice. Wicca is a religion. Can they be intertwined? Yes. Do you have to be Wiccan to be a witch? No. Can you be of other faith backgrounds and be a witch? Yes. Right. Does that make you less of a witch than someone who practices Wicca? No. There's lots of things. You can practice the Norse religion and still be a witch. The idea is learning to accept who you are, accept what your abilities are and your gifts, and just grow with them, and never stop learning. It's when we stop learning, we stop growing. And I think that one thing is when you get people to go, oh, I know all there is to know about the subject matter. No, you don't. I will never, ever tell somebody I'm an expert. It doesn't matter if I know a ton about the subject. I will never tell you I'm an expert, because when I tell you I'm an expert, I've stopped learning.
Right.
And so I will tell you I have knowledge that I'm willing to share, but I will never say I'm an expert. So just don't be an expert. Keep learning. Keep growing. And you'll find your path. And if it's witchcraft, or if it's Wicca, or if it's whatever, good. Just remember, as long as it doesn't hurt somebody, it's beautiful.
Yeah. On that note, we're going to say thank you again. And thank you so much. It truly was a pleasure to have you on the show today. I hope we can do it again soon. Stick around. And thanks everybody for watching the show this week. Thanks for being here. We're going to be back next week. I'm not exactly sure what we're doing. We could be having Cody back on. I'm pretty sure that's the week we're having Cody back on. But Trevor should be joining us next week. So we're really looking forward to that, guys. Have an amazing week, all of that stuff. Take care, and we'll see you soon.
Take care.
Thanks.